first thing I want you to do is I want you to use the primaries to mix your secondaries on the palette. So I'm gonna take my red, and I want just enough water in the brush so that it's gonna come up easily. I'm not scooping the paint up, but I don't want it to bleed out of control. So I want it to go on nice and smooth. I don't want the red to look pink, which means it can't be super diluted. I want it to go on as red. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna paint a color wheel using only the primaries. And I'm gonna put some color in the center as well to mix my neutral colors, my gray and my brown. So clean your brush thoroughly, move into your next color, which in this case is yellow. So that's gonna be my yellow dot. This is gonna be green eventually. So this is where the magic happens. Now, I'm gonna take the yellow and I'm gonna push it into the red to make an orange. And again, I'm just gonna use the center to sort of drop all my colors in there. Let's just add a little more yellow again, since that red is so powerful. Good, and there's my orange. Yours doesn't have to be a triangle, but I find that having one color flow into the next is really good. Obviously, I've labeled all these and I'd like you to copy my labels. So this one is labeled color wheel, and I'm doing it wet on dry with overlaying colors. So now I'm gonna go into the blue. That one's gonna be my blue, that's quite watery. The water quantity is really gonna be the biggest challenge that you're gonna face in watercolor. Is it bleeding out of control? Is it too dry? There's my purple. And let's just throw this in the center. There I'm starting to get a nice neutral color. So that's a beautiful brown, which will also function as a skin tone for me in the future. I can dilute it to match virtually anyone's skin tone, and I can push it in different directions, like for redder skin or more olive colored skin. Okay, so now going back to the blue, and now I'm gonna mix the blue in with the yellow. I'm gonna just get rid of a little blue on my brush so that it doesn't overtake the yellow. And there is my green. So I wanna leave this brown here, and I wanna try to get more of a gray with my neutral. So what I'm gonna do, and you'll notice that I'm using the paper towel just to regulate the amount of water in my brush. I'm not using it to clean my brush. I'm using the water to clean my brush. I use the paper towel to get the drips out of my brush so that it's not dripping. Okay, so to go back to the gray, I'm gonna load up my brush with a little more blue, and there's my gray. All from the primaries. If I were to dilute these a bit so you can see them a little better, just add a bit of water. There's a nice gray. And add a bit of water to the brown. And there's a nice brown. So that's basic color theory. The other thing I want you to be thinking about are complementary colors. So the complement, or the opposite of red, go right across the color wheel. That's gonna be green. The way to remember is that there is absolutely no red in green. Green is only made from yellow and blue. There is no red in green, and there is no green in red. The complement of orange, right across the color wheel, is gonna be blue. These are opposites, so they will make a neutral together. That's the other thing to remember, is that complements will make neutral tones. And then finally, the complement of yellow is purple. So if you're painting someone's skin tone, which is essentially brown mixed from the three primaries, and the skin tone is too yellow, you're going to add purple to neutralize. All right, next up, wet on wet. I'd like you to pause the video and do this one, and then move on to the next one. Okay, so wet on wet, I'm going to actually, and clean your water if you need to. You want your water to be clear. My water is not that clear, but you can see it. So lots and lots of water there. any color you want. I have a lot of orange, so I'm gonna go for that. And you're gonna see that with wet on wet, I wet the paper first, and the paint just spreads really beautifully across the page. It may go on a little bit stripey. If it's super stripey, that means that you've got chunks of paint in there, chunks of pigment, and not enough water. You can also use gravity to let the paint drip. I'm very physical with the paper, and that's how I'm gonna get these beautiful, clean color fields. The more water you use, the better. If you have too much water, you can always use your paper towel to absorb the excess. You can keep working on this as long as it's wet. The moment it becomes damp is when you need to stop and just let it dry. You can use a blow dryer to speed up the process, and like I said, you can also use gravity to manipulate the way things dry. This isn't my smoothest wet on wet example, but you get the idea. I also used my biggest brush, my wash brush. I have in the studio here, I have a huge brush for when I do very, very, very large paintings. But really, the largest you're gonna need is like a 1-inch flat. Some people use round brushes, but make sure it's a very big brush. Again, pause the video and do your version. One other thing I wanna mention, I see I have a little hair in there, like a little piece of fuzz. Don't go digging around with your nail, you're just gonna destroy your paper. Let it dry. If there's a hair on your painting or something, just let it dry, and when it dries, you can blow on it and it will disappear. Okay, wet on dry. This is what we think of generally when we think of painting, is so wet paint directly onto dry paper. Now, I'm more likely to use a small brush or make smaller marks. If I'm doing any facial features, wet on dry is the technique that I use. However, lots of painters do large areas wet on dry, and there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. I personally tend to use wet on wet 75% of the time because that style works best for me. However, a lot of painters prefer to work wet on dry more frequently. It's a matter of you figuring out which technique works best for you. I tend to start with a large brush doing wet on wet, let that dry, then migrate to a medium-sized brush, something closer to one of these two brushes, and I do all of my detail work with wet on dry. So this is usually the second stage of the painting for me. Okay, I want you to pause again and do that one.